Hello, this is Margarita Monet from Edge of Paradise, and you are listening to the Metal Pit Podcast.
Welcome to the Metal Pit Podcast, where we delve deep into the albums and bands that shape metal. Please visit us on our website at the Metal Pit, www.themetalpit.org, where you can find album reviews, interviews, and live show reviews. Also, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at the Metal Pit, and on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com at the Metal Pit 666, where we have, video album reviews, interviews, Zoom interviews, and all kinds of stuff starting there. I am your host, Blake, and I have with me one of my writers at the Metal Pit, Eric. How are you today, Eric?
Hey, Blake, what's going on, man? I am doing fabulous this morning. How are you doing?
Good. We're only a week or whatever from Halloween. You got your costume picked out yet?
I'm not sure about a costume, but I have a plethora of candy. How about you? You have your costume picked out?
I don't have a costume either, but I have my house decorated, and to see how many kids will be scared away from coming to my door. We have lots of candy too, so because we usually get a lot as kids. So,
all right.
Okay, so this is our last regular episode for the month of October, and we're kind of celebrating Halloween this month with maybe some scary albums or whatever. We had an episode on the band Bathory. We had one on Freddy Krueger's Underwear, which is FKU for short. And the last one was the death metal band Deicide. And that episode is also a video episode available on our YouTube channel. But if a hot knife slicing through butter scares you, you better not watch it. But if you're okay with that image, please check it out, as Kim and Jason did a great job with that one. On Halloween night next week, that will mark the 3-year anniversary of this version of the Metal Pit. And on that one, we reveal the Metal Pit writers' top 50 metal albums of all time, as most of our writers, not Eric, but have submitted their top 50 lists to me, so that from those lists, we will announce the top 50 albums as I calculate that out when we do that. But to finish off this month and the Halloween theme, we thought, what better band to talk about Halloween than one that almost sounds like Halloween, and that is, I just said it, Helloween, but the group Helloween with their 1987 album Keeper of the Seven Keys Part 1. Eric, when did you first hear either this album or about Helloween?
All right, well, a top 50 would just be too difficult for my brain, but I did give you a number one album.
Yes.
So Helloween, that video for Halloween was the first time I was exposed to the band. So it was it had to have been 80, I want to say 87, when I saw the video, and I was like, what on earth is this? I couldn't believe that MTV actually played such a long song, and the music grabbed me right away, and Michael Kiske high falsetto. I mean, it was definitely something different. How about you, Blake?
Well, I knew I had the first EP, the 5-song EP. Now I can't remember now, it's always hard to remember sometimes how I discover these bands. I don't know if I just saw the album and there was a pumpkin on it, of course, on the first one. So I don't know if I heard it first or if I just saw the picture and thought, I'm getting this. I don't really know. And of course, the group is called Helloween. I thought, well, that's kind of cool. So yeah, I've listened to them ever since the start of the career. And then, of course, Keeper of the Seven Keys. This is their second full studio album. They had the EP, and then they had the album Walls of Jericho. And guitarist Kay Hansen sang vocals on those two albums, the EP and the Walls of Jericho. But for this album, they got, as you mentioned, Michael Kiske in, because Kay Hansen he wanted to do more guitar and not have to worry about singing at the same time. So that's why they did it. Now, the band originally planned to release Keeper of the Seven Keys Part 1 and 2 as a double album, but their record label refused, insisting that the albums be released separately. And in 1993, both albums were released as a double CD with bonus tracks, but we're not going to discuss any bonus tracks. Helloween have 17 studio albums in their career, as well as the debut EP, so 18 kind of. I would say the EP and Walls of Jericho were more speed metal, and then once they got Michael Kiske here, they kind of turned into more European or into power metal. I mean, and they could be like the first maybe power metal band or first European power metal band. What do you think about that?
That's what I read, and that's what I actually thought as well. I thought they were given credit for being the first power metal band. They had that, they obviously had the up-tempo speed, but they had the operatic vocals mixed in with the very Maiden/Priest harmonies that I just love so much. That was one of the first things that grabbed me. But yes, I think you're spot on, Blake. They have been credited as the first power metal band.
Yeah, even though, like, I guess sometimes Iron Maiden and Judas Priest are kind of sometimes considered power metal, but I do think it's different. I think Helloween kind of changed it. But I know Helloween was definitely influenced by those two bands, of course, too. Mm-hmm. So on this album, the lineup is, as we said, Michael Kiske, on vocals. He was only 18 years old on this album. And we had Kay Hansen and Michael Wyckoff, who both on guitar. Wyckoff has been in the band since it started. And on bass was Marcus Grosskopf, who has a great name. And he has also been in the band since it started. And Ingo Schwarzenberg was the drummer, and he unfortunately has passed away. And let's see. And I'm not going to do a lot of stuff about their live songs, but I do have just one note. This album has been played songs from this album is played the second most times in Helloween's live concerts, according to setlist.fm website. Future World being like the third. Well, we'll talk about that later. Let's talk about the songs. Let's start. Now, this is only a 36-minute album, I think it is. And there's really only 5 songs on it in a way, because we have an instrumental intro, and then we have an instrumental outro, mostly instrumental outro. And then we have one song that's 13 minutes long. So there's really not that many songs. So we'll have to talk slow. So the first song is Initiation it's a short instrumental. I don't know. Do you want to say anything about that, Eric?
Oh, definitely. I made notes for every song.
Okay.
Initiation, this is the ideal place on the album for a succinct instrumental. It moves at a slow pace, offering hints of what is to come, with flourishes of melodic guitars and keyboards.
I should have went back and listened to their first 2 albums, because I know they had the Happy Halloween theme thing going on, I think, on the first album.
I haven't listened to either of those 2 in a while. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, neither. Well, yeah, sometimes I'll put on Walls of Jericho, but yeah, it's been a while. But anyway, so then we get to the first song, or the first real song, I guess, is I'm Alive. And I'll let you start talking about that one too.
Well, Helloween kicks in the door with this number. Michael Kiske's voice, it just soars from his first spoken word. What a full and sensational chorus. It's so memorable. The tremolo-picked harmony solos are immediate highlights. And the lyrics are actually uplifting to mirror the music. What did you think about this one, Blake?
Well, it's a fast. I called it an opener since the first instrumental, but whatever. It's a fast one. One of the faster ones on the album, probably, kind of harking back to the earlier 2 albums of the speed metal more thing. And yeah, you really notice, like, this is like a power metal heaven song with his vocals, like you just said. And it's funny because I don't mention my wife too much on these podcasts, because she's not a heavy metal fan. But whenever I play Helloween, like in the car or something, and Michael Kiske is on vocals, she'll say, "Is that Bruce Dickinson?" And I say, or she'll say, "Is that Iron Maiden?" I mean, and I go, "No, it's not Iron Maiden. It's Helloween." So, so she definitely hears the influence of Bruce Dickinson on Michael Kiske and his vocals. And this is more of a melodic power metal band, like I said, than the or power metal song than we got on the first two albums that were more raw and stuff, I guess we would say. And of course, Hanson's vocals aren't the same. And then we get to the song "A Little Time." This one is a little slower than "I'm Alive." And in the middle, we get the clock ticking and noises, sound effects. Kind of reminds me of Queensryche.
Oh, wow. Good pull. Nice, Blake.
Their, concept stuff they used to do. But anyway, it's a great song, but this is probably my least favorite one on the album. But again, we're only talking about 5 or 6 songs here, but it's still a great song. It's just probably one of my least favorite ones. And what do you think of "A Little Time"?
Well, you already covered the tempo. I just to add to it, this is a solid mid-tempo piece. It doesn't have the ferocity that "I'm Alive" or "Twilight of the Gods" has, but it's a pretty solid track number 3. The power chords sustain, allowing the vocals to establish a hook. The chorus is simple, yet it is solid. The interlude with the clock and sound effects offers some some subtle guitars. It's smart. I like the song.
And sorry. And it's it's probably one of, I mean, they're all good. Like I say, they're all good songs, really. Again, it helps that there's only 6 of them. But there's no fillers in this short album, as it turns out. Then we go to "Twilight of the Gods," which is a great title for a song. And I'll let you start talking about that. I don't really have that much. There was supposed to be 3 people on this podcast, so I didn't have a lot wrote down about every song. So feel free to expand on this one.
All right. Well, these Germans do not relent. Honestly, I can't decide which stands out more. The musicianship, speed picking with more twin harmonies and bends, or Kiske's soaring and infectious singing. I really like this song a lot. The verses, I didn't write any of this down. The verses are just fit the song well. Chorus, you'll notice with, in my opinion, both Keeper albums, parts 1 and 2, the choruses are always memorable. They're well arranged. And the twin harmonies, again, they do a great job. And I'll probably, it depends on our time, but for the song "Helloween," I'll definitely expand on some of the lead guitar playing on that one. But yeah, this is actually, gosh, it's hard. I really have never ranked the songs on here, but it's probably out of all these songs, it's probably my 3rd favorite.
I like again, I like them. But anyway, I like the killer guitar leads that they started the song with. And then I feel there's some kind of Maiden like galloping in the music there as the song gets going there. And yeah, it's one of my favorites. I don't know, it's hard to say. I don't know how many favorites can I have on an album because there's still some favorites coming up. One being the next one, "The Tale That Wasn't Right." And this is, I guess, would be our power metal ballad for this album. And again, it's showcasing Kiske's standout vocals, but I love the mood of the song and how it goes. And it's one of my favorite Helloween songs, actually, is this one. And what do you think of "The Tale That Wasn't Right"?
And here we have a ballad. Should we flip a coin to see if Blake likes it or not? You've already spoke first, but I wrote that specifically for you in this podcast. Everything about this tune works, from the acoustic guitars to the drums and bass, to the lyrics and vocals. The chorus drips with emotion. Let's see. So I can't help myself. There's another just amazing chorus here. I really like, I was going to cover the chorus, but part of the early first verse, "Thanks to you, my dear old friend, but you can't help, this is the end of a tale that wasn't right. I won't have no sleep tonight." Thought that was really well done. You can just definitely tell that that's a heartfelt verse there. So yeah, I like the lyrics quite a bit in this song too, and in the next one as well.
I know I always do say that I'm not a ballad fan, but then I get on these podcasts and then I'm usually saying, actually, I like this one. So I don't know. Maybe it's that I don't like ballads by, other groups like Guns N' Roses or something like that. I hate their ballads, but I guess these bands that I like, I can handle their ballads. Maybe that's the thing. And we haven't really you discussed the lyrics. We haven't really discussed lyrical content. And actually, sometimes I'll look up meanings for songs, but I really couldn't find much about it. I mean, you can kind of, a little time makes sense. There's only a little time in the world and stuff. Take advantage of it, and
Mhm.
and of course, the next song is probably self-explanatory when we get into that one. And so now we go to side two, and there's really only two songs on side two since it has the outro there. So we're gonna start with Future World, and I'll let you. Yeah, like I mentioned. I think I meant. Oh, I didn't mention. I stopped. This is the third most played Helloween song live, just after Eagle Fly Free and Dr. Steen. So
Oh,
this is
nice.
definitely one of the biggest songs ever, Future World. So what do you think of Future World?
Well, I don't normally talk about lyrics. Actually, this is my seventh podcast with you, and I normally don't cover the lyrics. But as I was re-listening to Keeper Part One, our future life will be glorious. Just the way the lyrics kind of roll off Michael's tongue, and the melody that he utilizes, just one of my favorite lyrics, and the way it's delivered. What an excellent display of harmony guitar playing with some legato techniques, which is hammer on and pull offs for those that don't play guitar. It's very smooth guitar playing throughout. It sounds great. Priest and Maiden would be proud.
Yes, and you're like you're about the only guitarist, or what I guess I will say accomplished guitarist of our staff that are on our podcast. So it's okay if you don't talk about lyrics, because you can talk about the guitar things that other people won't talk about, and then they'll talk about the lyrics. Because and sometimes, I mean, I go back to this trying to remember what 87. So I was in my 20s, early 20s. And I didn't really care about lyrics. I mean, sometimes I would say the lines and think, "Oh, I love this line," but it never really. I didn't care what the song was about lyrically, as long as the music was awesome and everything. So I didn't care, as long as they weren't talking about killing kittens or something like that. Which, of course,
Yeah.
Halloween's not going to be doing. Even though they have hell in their group's title, they're not really singing about too many bad things usually. So yeah, Future World is one of my favorite songs too. I don't have anything else to say about the album. It's like a power metal anthem, and I'm sure it's a crowd favorite, and they probably do a sing along thing. I've never seen Helloween live, so I can't confirm that, but I'm sure it is. And then we go to the epic song Helloween. And here, I'll start, I guess, and hopefully I don't say anything that you're going to say. So we know
Go
it's a
for it.
13 song. I would say it's one of the best metal songs of all time, or at least one of my favorite metal songs of all time. Like I say, we're going to do our top 50 albums thing. I'm hoping next year we can do our top 50 metal songs of all time, which is probably going to be harder than albums. But if we do that, this would probably be in my list. Everything about this song is just like pure metal, pure power metal magic. We have the slower intro, kicking it in, that crowd like sounding chant of masquerade, masquerade to start the song off with. And for me, as a kid growing up watching Peanuts cartoons, like in the Great Pumpkin that Linus, I think is, yeah, Linus was waiting for pumpkin patch. I thought it was so funny that they mentioned that in the lyrics of the song. And I don't know, as a kid growing up with Charlie Brown, I thought it was funny and cool.
That's great.
And I know I know the guitar. I play guitar, or I tried to play guitar, and I know this is a song where I'd be like, "Oh, I wish I could play something like this." So it's still good for my air guitar playing anyway. I look really good doing it. So, so Eric, talk about the guitar stuff and anything else about the song Helloween.
All right, will do. So I did neglect to say that Future World is my second favorite track on this album. Helloween is easily, unequivocally, my number one Helloween song out of all their albums. I don't own all their albums, but wow, Keeper Part 1 and 2 are both just, they're absolute gems. And you will definitely hear on this podcast and on our future Megadeth podcast where these two Helloween albums place. I think very highly of them. But you want an epic? You've got one. This song opens with some tension-filled guitars and a really pretty cool phrase, actually. The verse hits breakneck speed, something they do well. The vocals and music cover so much terrain between the verses, pre-chorus, and chorus. There are some slippery bass fills actually in here too. You can hear those better with the earbuds. Just kind of a side note there. There's a really cool tempo change when the bridge is introduced. I really love bands that can pull off the tempo changes. Not all bands can. Now, I don't feel, I was going to leave this out, but honestly, it's something I do firmly believe in. I don't feel the guitarists of Helloween really got their due, especially from this album and the Keeper Part 2 album. So they have some excellent soloing in this entire song, and their use of trills and speedy alternate picking is excellent. One lyric that kind of, it's really the musical section in the lyrics of Darkness, Where Am I Now? What an effective change tonally and emotionally. I always really like that part. And they have the heavy guitar parts and then the acoustic parts too. Again, you definitely have to put some planning in to that to pull it off and then make it sound really good for the average metal listener, because we are picky. Am I right, Blake? We're picky about what we listen to, so they better deliver, and they deliver in spades on this song. Helloween's use of keys, which resembles a choir and later an organ, is really well placed. Even casual metal fans can tell that Helloween took their time constructing this 13-minute power metal opus.
Now, do you compare it to Rime of the Ancient Mariner when you first heard it, just because it was such a long song?
It's funny. That's really a nice kind of an apples to apples comparison, Blake. I've never pictured it that way. I guess, I don't know. I'm just thinking, I mean, they're really, Rime of the Ancient Mariner is not really that much older than that song. I mean, it is, but not by a significant amount of years. But I see your perspective, but I've never really compared the two. But it was just one of those tracks where I was, not to be a scratch record or a scratch CD, if you will, but I was just dumbfounded that MTV actually had the cojones to play the whole song, the video, and I was like, wow, these guys just keep going. But it wasn't just repeating verses. It wasn't the chorus 10 million times. I was like, wow, they've really put some thought into this. Is it too much? I guess, that depends on the listener. I think that everything in that song, in the song, fits well. But I like that comparison, Blake. I can kind of see that.
Well, I think I don't know if I ever thought that back when it came out or whatever. Mm-hmm. I would have heard Rime of the Ancient Mariner first, 1984, I think it was. Mm-hmm. 5, whatever.
Yeah, 84, you're right.
84. But just when I was listening to it, like for this podcast, I was thinking, I wonder if they heard Iron Maiden's Rime of the Ancient Mariner and thought, shit, they can do a 13-minute song. We can do a 13-minute song. Or if it's something they thought of on their own that they were going to do anyway. Or if they thought, if Iron Maiden can do it, it must be okay for a band to do a 10, 12, whatever, 13-minute song. I don't know. It's just something that came into my head. And so I wasn't asking like you to say, oh, I like this one better than this one. But there is some, I mean, you can't do 13 minutes all the same speed, then it's going to be a little boring. Exactly. I would think. And probably hard to play live too, I would assume. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, you're going to get those slower parts and whatever. But yeah, it is a great song. And I just love the guitar stuff. And like I said, I still air guitar to it all the time when I hear it. Because there's no way I could play it with my real fingers. So... and then we end the album with Follow the Sign. And this is another it's mostly instrumental. There's some spoken word parts, but it's mostly just Follow the Sign. So what do you think of that ending to the album?
This could be the yang to initiation's yen. It does have more of an exotic sound as the guitars utilize the harmonic minor scale with some humming synth in the background. And then, as you had noted, Blake, the quiet spoken word by Michael. I like it. I think it's a pretty cool closer. It really makes you, to me, it makes you want to listen to the whole album again, just loop through it one more time. And as you noted, it's a short album, but such a great album as well.
Well, I'm wondering, like, because they said before they wanted to make it a double album, like they wanted to release it as a double album. So I'm wondering if at the time this was in there to say, okay, this is the end of album 1. Now we're going on to album 2. But then, the record label said, no, we're waiting a year to release the next album. I don't know. So I don't know if that was part of it or not, but
that's possible. Yeah, that's a good point.
But and I was trying to look. Well, first I'll just ask before I'll look it up while you talk. So what would you rate this album out of 10? Or how would you maybe compare it to the second one also too, like Keeper of the Seven Keys Part 2?
You know what? I was going to actually listen to Keeper Part 2 before we did this podcast, just in case you asked me that. And I listened to 3 albums yesterday just to get ready for our 1988 top 10 next month. I did not listen to Keeper Part 2. I will say I've listened to Keeper Part 2 a little bit more than Part 1. It's hard for me to judge. I was, admittedly, I'll be completely transparent with you. I was looking up the length. I mean, I probably just should have put it up on iTunes or whatever, but I was looking up the length of Keeper Part 2, and I didn't quite get the time length on it. But I was trying to kind of figure out. Yeah, let me see.
Actually, it's 49 minutes long. Part 2 is 49 minutes.
Thanks. Okay, so still not a really long album. But yeah, I could see where they were going, like you said, with a 36-minute album and then a 49-minute album. I mean, I could see how that'd be a double album, but I can also see the record company's decision to kind of shoot that down. But I would say that the albums are comparable. As I said, I listen to Part 2 more often, but without Part 1, I don't think they would have been able to write an Eagle Fly Free or I love Save Us. What a driving song. And honestly, without Helloween, do you think there would ever be a Keeper Part 2 song? No, I don't think so.
And I don't think I think I like number 2 better, but probably like number 2 better because it's longer, so there's more songs on it. Like you got, I think you mentioned I Want Out, and you got Dr. Steen and Eagle Fly Free, Keeper of the Seven Keys, another 13-minute song.
Oh yeah, what a journey.
Yeah. But yeah, they're both great albums, and it is hard to. There's actually another podcast episode on that one. We've already did that one. I did that one with Stacia and a friend of hers. So if anybody likes this one, make sure you go back and look for our number 2. I'm sure we mentioned the song Helloween on that episode too, because I do remember Stacia really loves that song too. And I can't remember what we ranked. I can't remember what we ranked at the end of that episode. Yeah. But anyway, sorry, did you give a rating? You didn't give a rating. What do you give this out of 10 then, this one?
That's where I was going. So right. I'm going to have to go back and listen to that podcast. I actually do have it checked. I have it on Spotify. I do have it downloaded. And the Practice What You Preach podcast was the most recent one I listened to. I like that a lot. Nice job, guys. Really love that album. But going back to Helloween, I would say I'm giving it a solid 9 out of 10. How about you, Blake? What do you rank it?
That is exactly what I'm giving it too.
Okay.
And it's probably, nice. I don't remember, probably Keeper number 2. I might have gave it a 10, and it probably would only gave it a 10 because there's more songs to like. But I can't recall what I did give it. You'll have to listen to the podcast and tell me what I gave it.
I have to. That's my homework.
But anyway, yeah, it's a great album. And it's just, I do wish it was, I don't like short albums, but back then I didn't really even think about it because I know I've done other podcasts about groups and going, oh, I hate that the album's only 30 minutes long or whatever. And like, I want at least 40, 45 minutes, but it wasn't a problem. It's great songs and everything. So yeah. So now, have you ever seen Helloween live?
I did. I saw them in the 80s. I want to say, again, it's been a while. I want to say they were the opener for Clash of the Titans. That's what I'm thinking. They opened up for some thrashers. I Want Out was a real standout live track. Obviously, it's one of their anthems. But they, Kiski sounded great. The band was driving. The crowd actually liked them. I wasn't really sure what like a speed thrash metal crowd would think, but I was jacked up. I thought it was kind of like a bonus that they are actually playing alongside, such a hard hitting lineup there. But yeah, it was a good show. I only caught them once. How about you, Blake?
Now,
did you ever see them live?
well, first, what year would that have been then? Like, or what album would have been after number 2 then?
It
Or
should have been after number
okay.
2. I want to say it's 89.
Okay.
It sounds about right.
Okay. No, I have never seen Helloween live. I always wanted to.
Yeah.
They played in Toronto this year and I wanted to go, but I think I had to work or something like that. I forget, but I did get a shirt because Stacia went and she bought me a shirt from the concert. So I have a shirt from the concert anyway, but yeah, I didn't get to go. So yeah, I've never seen them live. They don't really tour North America that often either.
You're right about that.
Over the years, like I don't remember ever when I was younger thinking I want to go see Helloween. I don't remember them ever even. I'm sure they did sometimes, but it was probably just when I couldn't go or something like that. Now you mentioned about where I lost my notes. Oh, here about other albums. You kind of stopped listening to them a little bit or whatever, but do you have any comments on some of the other albums in their catalog?
Yeah, that's one that is one regret. Like I stopped listening to, for whatever weird reason, I stopped listening to Helloween and Annihilator. I think with Annihilator, I was just getting into so many other bands at the time. Alice in Hell is such a phenomenal album. I do need to listen to more of their music. Helloween, Michael Kiske was one of my guys back in the day. When he left, I was, man, this sucks. I was like, what is going on? He's doing a solo album. I was like, whatever, so that was kind of hard. But I want to say, do you know what off the top of your head what that 94 album is? So there was one album I picked up.
Master of the Rings is 94.
Rings. It was the Rings. Yeah. So I picked that up and I didn't think it stunk, but I was like, okay, it sounds okay. But I was like, I like the music. I gotta say, I did give it a chance. I did like the music overall. The vocals, they were okay, but I was like, Kiske is just sounded so much better than I'm not really sure who the vocalist was. I think you have it right there.
Master of the Rings. I'm sorry. I'll have to look it up.
That's okay. That's okay. I don't mean to put you on the spot. Yeah. You were definitely the diehard fan, man.
Andy Darius was the vocalist, and he's still a vocalist with Helloween, as is Michael Kiske, because he's back too. Because they have actually 3 vocalists. Because Kai Hansen also does some vocals, but I don't think he does as much as the other 2 guys do. Yeah, but I like Andy Darius too myself.
Okay, yeah. So to kind of wrap up your question, I would say, I love both Keeper albums. I still like Walls of Jericho. The EP I didn't listen to too much. The Good, the Best, and the Rest. Obviously there's some live stuff in there. That's pretty fun. Dr. Steen, that's a fun one live. He really gets the crowd going. I only listened to this twice, but I'm going to spin it some more thanks to you, Blake. Keeper of the Seven Keys, The Legacy. So I've got that downloaded from 2005. The first one, I like the first 3 songs. I'm thinking, Mrs. God was one I really liked. The Shade and the Shadow, I believe, is one of the heavier songs. I like that one quite a bit too. And I think Light the Universe. I don't know if that was a ballad or not, but for some reason that one I thought had a good melody with Candace Knight. She was a guest musician on there. But how about you, Blake? Do you have any other?
Because I was going to say that is I think my favorite Helloween album actually is the one that you just mentioned, The Keeper of the Seven Keys, The Legacy. I think that is actually my favorite, and it is a double album. I guess the studio gave in and said, "Okay, release a double album."
I thought it was a long album. That's interesting. Okay, it's a double album. I'm looking at it now. It's 1 hour and 17 minutes. So okay, yeah,
because you got the first song on it is 13 minutes long.
That's pretty gutsy, man. I don't care what year it's released. To open an album with a 13-minute song, honestly, 7 minutes. So like a 7-minute song, 8-minute song would be a big deal, But a 13-minute, you could tell Helloween doesn't care. You got to appreciate the artist's mindset there. Yeah.
Yeah, I've kept listening to them. I mean, there's some few albums, Chamalon, or I think it's called, from
Okay.
1993. I didn't really like that album too much, and
Okay.
some of the albums, Pink Bubbles Go Ape. There was maybe only a few songs that I liked on it. I did like The
Hmm.
Time of the Oath a lot, and like I said, Keep It Seven Keys, and some of the later ones. I did one album with an orchestra. I don't think I have that listed here, but where they
Oh,
had an
I'll have to
orchestra
check that
playing with
out.
them, which was
I'll
cool.
definitely have to check that out. Cool.
And I have a live album in my hands, or a live CD, I guess, which was
Hmm.
from 1989, and it only has 6 songs on it, so it's kind of like an
Huh.
EP thing. But
Oh,
I can't.
wow.
It's not available on Spotify now. Maybe people are on Apple. Maybe it's on Apple. It's just called "I Want Out." I guess live is what it's called.
Oh, I had that cassette actually.
Okay, because it just says a little time, Dr. Steen, Future World, We Got the Right, I Want Out, and How Many Tears on it. But I
Oh
love
yeah,
that. I
how
love
many tears is great.
I love the
Yeah.
singer's performance in that one and his play
Hmm.
with the crowd and stuff. So that's one of my favorite live albums, actually, even though it's kind of a short one. But anyway, so okay, so I guess that's all about this album, and we're gonna finish the episode talking about our top 10. I lost my note, so here it is. Top 10 albums of 1987. And I guess I will let you go first because mine is filled with thrash. So I will let you go first with yours.
There's nothing wrong with thrash. My top 10 for '88 has a good bit of that. Um, so 1987 top 10. This one wasn't as difficult as the top 10 '88, but it still wasn't easy for me. Actually, kicking things off at number 10 is Overkill, Taking Over. To really like that album. Yeah, Blitzer definitely comes into his own on that album. I don't want to talk too much about each album. So number 9, I revisited these guys. I know you, and I think it's Billy. I could be wrong, but maybe it's Jim. But Manowar, number 9, Fighting the World. I revisited this album because I remember it
Mhm.
really made an impact many moons ago. And that Black Wind, Fire and Steel. There are some great tracks on this album, man. That's so
Yes.
good. The energy, man, power and energy, I suppose, are interchangeable, but what an awesome album. Let's see, number 8. This will be a curveball for most of our Metal Pit legions of fans here and writers, but I'm going for Doc and Back for the Attack. George Lynch
Mhm.
absolutely just blisters through the entire album. Check out Lost Behind the Wall. It's just one of these kind of under the radar tracks. It's just got this, it's got this cool, like, just aura to it. It's got just this edge. And Don's vocals are a little bit more kind of even keel. But there's Mr. Scary. I mean, it's got some really good songs on there. Obviously Kiss of Death. I could go on, but I'll choose not to. Number 7.
I used to listen to a lot of Dokken back
Okay,
in those days. They didn't make my list, but yeah,
cool.
I have no problem with Dokken and stuff.
Cool.
Go ahead.
Oh crap. We didn't do honorable mentions. Maybe can I do
No,
that
you can do that
afterwards?
after you do
Yeah.
your two.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I was just kind of looking at that. Um, this one. So this was a little hard for me because I don't really listen to them much these days. But this album is one of the two that, well, maybe one of the three that really made an impact from the artist. So number 7 is King Diamond, Abigail. Um,
Mhm.
I really like this album quite a bit. I don't listen to them really a whole lot these days, but the rhythm guitar playing and lead guitar playing are very, I think they're very influential actually on a lot of other bands that came out after King Diamond. Um, yeah, I guess Family Ghost gets kind of most of the pub, but there's so many great songs on the album. Number 6, this one was a little tough for me to slot because he's one of my all-time favorite vocalists. And he might be one of your favorite vocalists too. I'm not 100% sure, but it's Dio, Dream Evil. So this to me was a comeback album for Dio. No disrespect to Sacred Heart. I think that's a fabulous song. The album I thought was pretty good. Dream Evil,
Mhm.
I think, is a solid comeback album. Um, Sunset Superman, I learned it on guitar. I love the vocals on that track. It's very driving. The whole album's excellent. Naked in the Rain, kind of a strange title, but that's got a pretty cool vibe to it. Really, really dig that album though. Obviously the title track is really good too. Let's find number 5. This one actually, this morning I thought about bumping this one up a little bit more. This is another one that really impacted me in my youth. Armored Saint, Raising Fear. I've always been a John Bush guy. I did like him on Sound of White Noise with Anthrax. I didn't really listen to much of his other Anthrax material. I always felt that he fit Armored Saint better. I actually saw them last October, and I don't want to offend anybody, but I guess I will. They blew Wasp off the stage, and I like Wasp, by the way. But the musicianship just trumped them. Raising Fear is an excellent album, beginning to end. Chris Pritchard, he's long gone, but guitar player is definitely an influence on me and for many guitar players. Number 4, here we go. Sabotage, Fall of the Mountain King. Whew. Man, 87 was a damn good year for metal music. I gotta say. I raved about this on our last Sabotage podcast. I like the entire album. 24 Hours Ago, man, I mean, you want to talk about it's a bit of an unconventional song, but there is some blistering guitar playing, and I love Oliva's vocals on it. He just hits some crazy like shrieks, but it fits the song very well. I'm a little bit torn here, but I'm going to stick with my list. Number 3, this is the only instrumental album that made it on my list. Joe Satriani, Surfing with an Alien. This album actually went gold, so it was highly successful. Joe's one of my all-time favorite guitar players. Beginning to end, it's a sensational album. It's hard for me to compare it with Flying in a Blue Dream. This is not a Satriani podcast, so I will not do this. But it's Crushing Day, Satch Boogie. The whole album's just so great. But I gotta say, our German friends, Helloween, ended up just edging out. Joe, sorry about that, buddy. But Keeper Part 1 is number 2 for me. I listened to it. I don't think I told you this, Blake. Not a big deal. It's nothing earth shattering. I listened to Keeper Part 1 for pretty much randomly several months back. I was like, gosh, I forgot just how much I really enjoyed this album. And I was reminded how short the album is. I was like, gosh, why can't they play like 2 or 3 more songs? But it's, such a phenomenal album. I don't think there's a weak track on the album. We just had the podcast. So that's number 2. Number 1, this is kind of a combination for me where it's such an influential thrash metal album. And it's top 5 thrash metal album for me of all time. This is Anthrax Among the Living. This is just one of those albums. It would be in my top 50 if I had to sit down for 48 or 72 hours to do a top 50. Among the Living, just there are no warts on this album at all. Caught in a Mosh. The intro is just genius. It's eerie. It starts off slow, and those drums just come in. And Belladonna is Belladonna. I guess you either love him or hate him. He's got a different voice. He's got a more melodic range. He can do a rougher voice, but he's definitely a more melodic singer for a speed thrash metal, and that's one thing that stood out to me. But Imitation of Life sometimes gets overlooked. I think that is an excellent song, man. What a killer closing track as well. But the whole album's so good. So Among the Living is number 1 for me and a top 5 thrash album of all time for me. How about Blake?
Well,
how about you?
How about you? Go. What are how many honorable mentions do you have there? Do you want to do those first?
Thanks. Yeah. So let's see. It's funny. My 88 has so many more honorable mentions. It could be an actual list. So for my 87 honorable mentions, I wanted to include. You did actually give me the green light for Garage Days. It's an EP. I chose not to include it just because the other albums are a little bit longer. I guess honestly, Helloween they might be about the same length now that I think about it. But I would say Garage Days, Small Hours is one of my favorite Metallica songs, actually. Great remake. But I would say Garage Days, Metallica. I wanted to include this, but it's a live album, so I get that. Ozzy Osbourne tribute, Randy Rhoads. I mean, this was just a magical album, live album. Ozzy and Randy. I mean, the whole band. So that's an honorable mention. All straight to the top. Wasp live in the Raw. I actually wanted to listen to that before our podcast. I thought that was really. I think it's kind of argued. I thought that was the height of their career. Great live album. Testament Legacy. I did listen to that actually at lunch at school. I had my earbuds in. I listened to that, and man, what a ferocious debut album by the San Francisco Bay Thrashers. So I believe that is all I put down here. Now we can turn the page to one Mr. Blake Mossy.
Okay, now this with your honorable mentions and with your top 10 list, there's a lot of matches here, but maybe just different orders. I'll start with my honorable. Well, no, I won't. No, I'll do the. Well, I have Garage Days also as an honorable mention because I listened to the hell of that thing. But yeah, it's only 5 songs, so I thought I won't include it in the top 10 list. And I also have Trouble, Run to the Light in my honorable mentions, and Canadian thrash band Sacrifice with their album Forward Determination, and another German band, thrash metal band, Tankard, with their Chemical Invasion album, which I do love. I just got pushed off my top 10. So number 10, I have a group called EZO. Have you ever heard of that group before?
That does not ring a bell. Tell us about it, Blake.
Okay, they're no, I don't have a lot of notes about my list because most of them are self-explanatory. But EZO is a Japanese metal band that really only had, let's see, it lists that they have 5 albums, but as far as I know, they really only had 2. But this album was in 1980, well, obviously 1987, but I don't know. I just love the album. It's hard for me to explain it. They're probably maybe just a little heavier than hair metal or whatever. And it was actually produced by Gene Simmons of Kiss. So I would say it's the only good thing. This album is the only good thing Gene Simmons has ever done in music. Sorry, Kiss fans.
That's pretty good.
But anyway, I think it's a great album. I think it's on Spotify, so check out EZO, and it's different, of course. I mean, we have Loudness was from Japan, but I guess if I had to make a list of my favorite albums from Japan, this would be number 1.
Okay.
And I wouldn't have 10, obviously. I'd have like 2. Anyway, so back to my list. Okay, so number 9, I have Joe Satriani, Surfing with the Alien. As I was beginning to wonder if you were going to have him on your list. I thought, come on, a guitarist has to have Joe Satriani, this album.
It's required.
Because, I just love the title track on that one and a bunch of other ones, even the slow ones. He's just one of the best guitarists ever. He gave Kirk Hammett of Metallica some guitar lessons, and I saw the G3 tour once with him and Steve Vai and somebody else. Now I forget the other guy's name. Eric Sardinas. I think
Eric Johnson.
It was Eric Sardinas. He was kind of a bluesy kind of guy. Okay. I'm not sure if there was a reason that the other guys didn't come. I can't remember now, but I can't even remember what year it was. But anyway, that was a highlight, seeing Joe Satriani and Steve Vai the same night doing their stuff. Okay, at number 8, I got Testament, The Legacy, which you mentioned. Number 7, I got Sabotage, Hall of the Mountain King. And our number 6's match, as I got Dio with Dream Evil.
Okay.
And then we got a couple thrashers with number 5. I got Exodus, Pleasures of the Flesh, which I think is their 3rd studio album, I believe. I'm a big Exodus fan, especially the early albums, and that was another one that I loved. Number 4, I got Death Angel with The Ultraviolence, which was their debut album. And that had a 10-minute instrumental 10-minute long instrumental thrash song. And I thought that was awesome that they did that. And it has their song Kill As One, which is probably one of my top 50 metal songs of all time. So I love that album. And they were like just teenagers too when they released that album. I don't even know if they were 18 yet.
Yeah, I'm trying
So
to
it's
think.
incredible, actually.
Real quick, I don't remember the very first video they put out, but you could tell they were so young and that like their I don't know if it was the debut album or the Frolic Through the Park, but yeah, they were really young.
Well,
Yeah.
this is their debut, so, and it probably was "Kill As One," I think was the
Okay.
first single, as if I can remember off the top of my
Okay.
head. Okay, and number 3, I have this album that we talked about tonight, Helloween, Keeper of the Seven Keys, Part 1. And probably more, it's probably mostly third just because it's not as long, as the next two. Number 2, I got Among the Living by Anthrax, because yes, it's one of my favorite albums of all time. And it's probably in my top 50 list, if I remember correctly, somewhere. I just don't know where. And number 1, I got, you were right, I do like this group, Manowar, Fighting the World is my favorite album of 1987.
All right. Wow.
Because yes, even though there's some cheesy lyrics there with trying to get on MTV with the song,
Blow
but
your speakers.
yeah, blow your speakers, but I still love it. It's so powerful, and so I love that. So yeah, so there we go.
All right.
Okay, so that is the episode. So I just want to mention again, so there will be no episode next Wednesday, which is November 1st. There will be no episode on that day because we're going to release the episode on Tuesday, which is Halloween night. And it will be our 3rd year anniversary episode. We reveal the Metal Pit's top 50 metal albums of all time. And then Wednesday, November 8th, we will be back with our regular podcast again. And that will be the start of season 2 of our podcast. So this is actually our last episode of season 1, not counting the top 50 thing. So this is actually the last episode of season 1. So hopefully everybody will tune into that. Make sure you go check out Helloween Part 2 that we already did podcast, and check out our video podcast of Deicide that was just posted, and check out all our other podcasts, and stay tuned and tune in to our top 50 album reveal episode on Halloween night. So thanks, Eric, for joining me tonight.
Thank you, Blake. I cannot wait to listen to that top 50. It's going to be great. It might be a little bit spooky, right?
Yeah, so I'm sure we'll have costumes on, even though it's not going to be recorded on video. But anyway, okay, so thanks for joining me, and thanks everybody for listening. Goodbye.